Hi, I'm Shweta,
And I'm Sushma.
and we will be demonstrating a screencast of our project on analyzing weather data and its impact on border crossings into the border states of the United States and visualize that data using Tableau. First, let's take a look at the datasets that we have for this project. The first dataset is the border crossing data. This is the Bureau of Transportation Statistics dataset from the United States Department of Transportation, and here is their website. The data needs to be selected based on the port of entry, the year, and the month, and the retrieved dataset contains the number of passengers who came into the United States from that port via various means of transportation, such as trains, bus, pedestrians, and personal vehicles. We had to download the data separately for each border state for each month of the years 2013 and 2014. And as you can see, once we have made the selection, the data is available to us to be downloaded as a data file or a CSV. The second dataset is the storm events data. This dataset is provided by the National Climatic Data Center, NCDC. Their database contains the occurrence of storms or any other significant weather phenomena that occurred across the United States. Since we are focusing on only border states for this project, we have selected the storm data only for those states. And as you can see, we can make the selection based on the state, the date of occurrence, the end date, and select on the event types and click on search. And then the data can be exported from here in the form of a CSV. The retrieved dataset contains storm and weather data for that state for a given month and year. We could not get the entire data at one stretch since the website could only accommodate 500 rows of data at a time. As you can see, the website restricts the results to 500 records. Hence, after all the downloads were made, we had to stitch all the data into a single CSV file, which looks like this. Since we are doing a monthly data comparison and not a day-to-day data, we created a pivot table for this in order to get only the count of occurrences of each event in a given month. Hence, our pivot table looks something like this. It shows all the weather data for that state for a given year and for that particular month. Our third and the final data set is the temperature data. This data set is also provided by the NCDC and gives us the average temperature in a given state for a particular year and month. We incorporated this data into the storm or the weather data set. The final weather data set looks something like this. We have the state, year, month, and we have listed all the weather phenomena in the columns, such as blizzard, drought, extreme heat, extreme cold, flood, etc. And also incorporated the average temperature for that month for that particular state. So for Alaska in 2013 January, we had 15 occurrences of blizzard in that month, and the average temperature was 9.8 degrees. This is how our ER diagram for the database looks like. So we have the weather, state, and the border crossings. The next thing to do is create a database. To create a database, we used PHP My Admin Client. As you can see, we have created a database called Border Crossing, and this database has three tables: Border Crossing, State, and Weather. The Border Crossing data contains a crossing ID, state ID, year, month, transport mode, and the number of passengers. And the Weather ID is a foreign key, and the Weather table contains the Weather ID, state ID, year, month, all the weather phenomena like blizzard, drought that we have seen in the CSV file, and the average temperature. Similarly, we have the state table, which contains the state ID and the name of the state. The state ID becomes the foreign key in the border crossing as well as the weather table. The next step is to load the data into these tables. As you can see, the tables in our database do not contain any data at present. Now let's look at what can be done once your database is set up.
The next step is to import all the data from CSV files into the database. To accomplish this, we will be using the following Python script. As we can see, we have given the CSV name, that is testweather.csv, that contains all the weather data, and we have given the command insert to weather table in the database. Let us execute this Python script in the terminal. As we can see, the data has been loaded into weather table, but let's verify it by taking a look at phpMyAdmin. As we can see, the data has been loaded into weather table. We will be next importing the data into border crossing table. We can see the insert statement and the CSV file from which the data will be imported. Here we are executing the Python script in the terminal. As we can see, the data has been inserted to the border crossing table. When we check the border crossing table in the database, we can see that the data has been loaded. Similarly, we loaded data into all the other tables like weather and state using the Python script. To analyze the impact of weather conditions on border states, we queried the database using various filter combinations and exported the results using Python. Here is the code that is helping us in obtaining the average temperature values and number of passengers for the year 2013 in Alaska. As we can see, we are exporting these results into a file called tableaualaska.csv. Now let us execute the file in Python. And let us check the file tableaualaska.csv to see if it has exported the value that we required. We can see that all the values that we required has been exported from the database. So this is how the file would look when opened in Excel, and we will be using this file to load it into Tableau for visualization. Now let's look how to visualize the exported data using Tableau. We start by loading the data into Tableau by using a new data source, and then we define the required measures and dimensions that we will be using for visualizing the data. We will further add properties like color and define labels. This map visualization shows how the number of passengers varied across various border states based on average temperature in January 2013. For example, we see that Texas had around 6 million people crossing the border with an average temperature of 47.9, whereas North Dakota had 92,000 people crossing the border with average temperature of 11.4. We can further hover on each state to get details on other values like the number of occurrences of rain, heavy snow, high winds, etc. It is possible to further drill down the visualization by considering each state at a time. This particular visualization only considers Alaska in the year 2013. As the temperature becomes more favorable during June, July, and August, we see more number of people as compared to January and February. We can also visualize the data using bar charts. This chart represents the impact of blizzard occurrences in North Dakota for all the months during 2013. We can see that blizzard occurred 121 times in the month of January and hence less number of passengers, while August had 250,000 people crossing the border with no occurrences of blizzard. These visualizations clearly demonstrate us that weather changes affect the number of people crossing the border.